the statehood resolution. Okay. Good. So now we will proceed to approve the agenda for the rest of the meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
May I ask if we can sign the settlement agreement and then some people could leave
Sure.
if they...
Sure.
Andrea, I saw May and June minutes, but I didn't see July.
She just sent
Sent them half an hour ago.
it right at the end.
Are they printed out?
No.
Mary Beth, take the word rock, please, and amplify it 700 times.
What did you say? She's giving you a hard time.
Okay. You take that copy and then we'll take care of the rest of them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tell Fabio thank you too.
Okay, so now we're going to move to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes for May, June, and July. Now, our secretary circulated the minutes for May and June, so let's start with those. Are there any comments or concerns, questions from commissioners on those first two?
I corrected a typo.
Yes, I got a correction
Yeah.
from Mary Beth,
Okay,
and I will amend them as she suggested.
okay. So let's go ahead and approve May and June. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May and June.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Passes 7-0. Now, the July minutes we've just received. We haven't had a chance to do a substantive review, but we do need
Do we have to do that tonight?
to approve it for our financial report. So what
Actually, no, we
July.
only need April, May, and June,
Oh,
so
good.
we are good to go if we need to wait as far as the quarterly report goes.
Okay, so then let's defer that till next month.
Okay,
Good.
Great.
Okay,
so we're going to table them until October.
we'll table the July minutes until the next meeting. Good. So we'll move on to the next item, commissioner announcements and updates. So where should we start? Want to start?
Yeah, so I have two announcements. One is, after a lot of discussion back and forth with Comet Ping Pong and the settlement agreement, we had some noise violations that happened over the last week to 2 weeks. We called them, they settled them very quickly. It turned out that it wasn't the same problem as it was before. It was another kind of problem that they got on very quickly. So I'm glad of this thing that we built with the settlement agreement. The other announcement is that this past week, there was a kickoff meeting of the newly reformed Consumer Utility Board that took place at UDC. Councilwoman Che was there and a host of others. It was a successful event, and if anybody wants more information, please ask me. There's a video and minutes posted at the Consumer Utility Board website. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
I have 4 quick announcements. First, I'd like to let everyone know that on September 12th, the Washington City paper ran an article on rent control abuses related to concessions in our ANC, specifically in my SMD. We talked about this issue at our last meeting, so some of you have heard about it. We do have some printed copies here for anyone who wants it. I would also be happy to provide a web link, so please contact me at 3FO2@anc.dc.gov if you'd like a link to that article. Related to that, I'd like to let folks know that we have confirmed that we will have a panel discussion on this topic at the upcoming DC Tenant Summit, which is an annual event hosted by the Office of the Tenant Advocate. It will take place this Saturday, September 24th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Kellogg Conference Center at Gallaudet University. Attendance is free, but you must register in advance. Please do so on the OTA website. In addition, I would just like to alert people to please stay tuned for additional information on a community meeting that we plan to organize specifically on the topic of rent concessions. I'm currently communicating with several other ANCs, the Mayor's Office, Councilmember Che, and several other members of the City Council to address this issue legislatively, and we really need your support, so please do attend that meeting when we advertise it. It will likely be in October or November. And finally, I'd like to let residents of my district 3FO2 know that that we will have our quarterly community meeting this upcoming Tuesday, September 27th. It'll take place at 7:30 p.m. in the first floor social room of 3003 Van Ness, and that meeting is open to all businesses and residents of ANC 3F02. Thank you.
I have a single announcement. It concerns an event that the Soapstone, Melvin Hayes, and Parks and Trails Subcommittee is going to be doing in conjunction with the Rock Creek Conservancy. It'll be on October 8th from 9 to 11 a.m. That's Columbus Day weekend. And we'll be cleaning up the western part of Melvin Hazen. We'll be removing some trash and some invasive species that are there. Volunteers will be meeting at Sedgwick Street Northwest right before the community garden at 9 a.m. and we expect it to last about 2 hours. For more information, just go to our website. I will get a link up for the sign-up page or check out the Rock Creek Conservancy site.
I have a few short announcements. First, Murch Elementary started school on time on August 22nd at their new UDC swing space. All the classrooms were open, everything was in place on time for the start of school, so that was great. And there were some early teething problems, but those are being worked out. They're still working on an arrangement to use the UDC gym for the kids, so hopefully that'll be resolved soon. Also, construction on the old school on 36th Street begins in October. So we will post the final designs on our website as well if anyone's interested. And you can also get those from the DGS website. Second, the November election, the polling place in our area is traditionally at UDC, I'm sorry, at Murch. And so, of course, that is not going to happen this year. So they have moved it to St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 4900 Connecticut, which is right across the street from Murch. It'll be in the church hall, the multipurpose room. So everybody who's a registered voter in the area here should get notification of that.
That's specific area, ANC, correct? Or is that?
It's
do you know
it's a
precinct?
wider area,
Okay.
but it's not that wide.
Okay.
So it doesn't go all the way down to your area or anything.
Chairman Nugent, on the designs for the new Murch school, will that come back before the ANC in terms of any public space permits, curb cut issues, or will there be an opportunity on that one?
There's a SIT meeting tomorrow night at 5:30, and that will come up, I assume, at the SIT meeting.
Okay.
They're going to go ahead with the notional approval of a curb cut on Reno,
Okay.
which we don't oppose since there's now an agreed plan.
Okay. I have no further comment on that.
Okay, good. So then, some of you may have noticed that the Van Ness Metro West Side stairs closed again on Monday, yesterday. They'll be closed through January or February. This is the final closure of those stairs. The last time they'll have to close them. The east stairs remain open, the elevator remains open, and according to WMATA, the project is on schedule, so that's good. The Beach Drive Rehabilitation Project begins on Thursday, September 22nd. Beach Drive will be closed from Rock Creek Parkway to Tilden, so we'll hear more about that later on in the meeting. And then finally, I attended the Board of Zoning, BZA, Board of Zoning Adjustment. Is that it?
Yes.
The Board of Zoning Adjustment hearing on Tuesday, last Tuesday, on the application for variances related to the parking lot behind Zips, the 4418 to 4420 Connecticut. So what was agreed, what the board agreed to was perpendicular rather than angled spaces, compact cars only now in that lot, which is going to be interesting to see.
Let's see how that's enforced.
Enforcing that.
Following.
How do you define that?
It's a car that will fit in a 16-foot spot instead of 18.
Right.
So that's all
No
they'll get.
SUVs.
Yeah.
Or pickup trucks.
And one space at the back will be maintained for a possible future pass-through if we're able to unify the parking lots back there. Also, the board gave them approval for 10 years instead of the 4 that we had called for.
Seriously?
Yeah, we argued for it, OP argued for it, DDOT wasn't there, but in the end, the board decided that it was too much of a burden on the applicant to have to come back in 4 years. They also agreed to a condition for permeable pavement within 9 years instead of the 7 that we had asked for, because the applicant showed that the current lot has a remaining life of 8 years in it. And they agreed to annual compliance report to the ANC.
The applicant had agreed to a shorter time span for permeable already.
Right.
They changed their mind after they
Right.
came to us.
Right,
7 years, I think.
right.
What about the ADA compliant parking space?
They'll have an ADA compliant space right at
It'll
the
be
front.
marked.
It'll be marked, right. They'll still have 19 spaces, they'll just be smaller, shorter.
Ryan was not there?
Ryan was not there. There was a woman from
ADA
Oakland.
compliant if they have a compact car.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Car to go, smart car.
Right, that's all I have. Sally?
Well, the second before the end leads right into mine. So I have two announcements. After 3.5 years of badgering DC agencies, it is time for a big shout out to Mike Matthews, who's no longer with the mayor's office, but Ian Mager, who's right here sitting up front, and DDOT, John, for repaving the 3100 and 3200 blocks of Brandywine Street adjacent to Forest Hills Park. Yay! It's pothole-free smooth driving is most welcome by all, at least my constituents, and the rest of the motorists in the hood. Happily, the repaving is just in time for the upcoming morning rush hour traffic zooming up Brandywine Street due to the detour plans for the Beach Road construction project. Will I hear more about this later from John Thomas? The second one is exciting improvements have been made at 6 businesses along Connecticut Avenue due to the recent implementation of the Van Ness Main Street Small Business Design Improvement Grants Program. It's a mouthful. Acacia Bistro Flagship Car Wash and Commissioner Nugent's SMD. Van Ness Wine and Liquors and Commissioner Edelstein's SMD. And the Italian Pizza Kitchen, Thai Pad Restaurant, and the Cutting Edge Barbershop in my SMD all received grants for interior improvements such as painting, floor replacement, small construction projects, updates, and lighting improvements to their interior spaces. The total grant expenditure of $18,344 by Van Ness Main Street was also matched by the businesses to the tune of $6,000. The work has been completed by the businesses, so please go and see them and experience their improvements and enjoy their services. So kudos to Van Ness Main Street's board and executive director Teresa, who's in the back, and our grant recipients for a job well done. A couple of them just left. I will let Teresa talk about the exciting process that's being done at the Connecticut and Albemarle corner, where the Van Ness Main Street's design committee is improving the storefront at Diplomat Cleaners, the nail salon, Thai Pad, and the barbershop.
3 short announcements. We're happy to report, after several years of vacancy, that the State of Israel is planning to move its ambassador back to Forest Hills. So they're going to raise the building at 2916 Chesapeake Street and build a new home. So Commissioner Gresham and I met with the architects and with their expediter the other day and started going through the plans. We've now gotten a copy of their stormwater plans, which we just got a few days ago. And I'd like to thank specifically Commissioner Gresham's husband, Steve Gresham, and our own David Bardeen, former ANC chair, for the time and expertise that they've put into helping us review these stormwater drawings. So we anticipate that this public space construction permit application will be on our meeting next month. It was originally on tonight's agenda and got removed. That's why. Second item, Teresa Cameron, Executive Director of Van Ness Main Street, will speak about this in more detail, but I just wanted everybody to mark your calendar for this Saturday, Art All Night in Van Ness. Truly, this is the most exciting thing that has ever happened to Van Ness. You don't want to miss it. Teresa is going to talk about that more. We're also going to have a fundraiser on Saturday, November 5th, and you'll be getting more information on that. And finally, Sally has already given kudos to Ian Maggard. Ian has been spending lots of time in the Van Ness corridor, which we're really appreciative of. And he met with us to talk about the intersection of 32nd and Albemarle. We're probably going to cobble together a resolution to talk about that next month. But in the meantime, Ian shared with us that the city or the mayor's office is putting together a new ANC resolution management system. And we were really excited to hear about that because honestly, a lot of times it
Asking
feels
for
like our resolutions go into black holes. And so the idea that there is a tracking system similar to DDOT's TOPS system is just very exciting, and I'm really sad that this is happening at the end of my 4 years. But
Not too
happily,
similar to
for the
Tom's.
rest of you, hopefully that'll be a really great way to realize the fruits of our labor. That's all.
I have several things to announce from my single-member district. Item 16 tonight is a discussion about the Death with Dignity Act that is currently in front of the DC Council. In relation to that, I wanted to announce that Diane Rehm from WAMU NPR fame, will be speaking and or preaching October 9th at the National Cathedral, both at a 10 o'clock and an 11:15 service. Shifting to Hearst Elementary, which is in my SMD, there's a movie this Friday, the Lego movie from 7 to 9 o'clock. The community is welcome. On November 5th, Hearst Elementary will be hosting its annual e-cycle. The event is a community event, and it includes Potomac e-scrap, which recycles most, if not all, electronics. There'll be a paper shredding truck there. I participate in the bike swap event, which is primarily focused on kid bikes, and any leftover bikes are donated to Bikes for the World or other local groups focused on youth and bicycling. The Washington Animal Rescue League will also be there. Again, this is November 5th. They'll be bringing their pet adoption RV. We'll be sending out notices via the listservs for kids or families with kids. There'll be a rock climbing wall, moon bounce, and all that typical kid stuff. And there'll be a used kids book swap. Keeping on Hearst, the elementary school has essentially completed its renovation. The double-decker trailers at the rear of the school have been removed. The underlying infrastructure has not been. According to DGS, this property is, quote, DC owned, end quote, and they haven't attributed ownership to DCPS or DPR. It is currently not part of the Hearst Park project, and the plan is simply to plant grass in this area. Still on Hearst, there's a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, that is associated with the Hearst gym. I've been attempting to get that finalized for the last 2 years. It's not finalized, but once it is, that'll allow community access and student access between 3:30 and 9 weekdays, and more fun for the community is hopefully Saturday mornings. It'll be open to the community for basketball and things like that. Also in my SMD is Sidwell Elementary. The Washington home is in the process of being bought by Sidwell School. In order for Sidwell to relocate its lower school in Bethesda to join its upper and middle schools along Wisconsin Avenue. My understanding is that the Washington home is being sued by a group of residents and or their guardians, represented by Ms. Mary Mason and others, supported by law students at UDC's School of Law. They filed in the Superior Court of DC based on the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act laws and the rights residents and apartment buildings have when properties are being sold. The case was heard on September 14th. Both the Washington home and its chief executive, Tim Cox, are being sued. In light of this, Sidwell does not know when it will be able to close on the property. It was previously projected to close on in December. Sidwell expresses its ongoing willingness to work with the ANC and the neighbors with regard to any issues now or going forward. Chairman Nugent previously discussed Merch's relocation to UDC, which is also in my SMD. I'll remind the commissioners that we passed a resolution strongly urging DOT to look at the parking meter issue on 36th Street between Yuma and Reno. There are several parking meters there that are not being used and are forcing the merged parents and staff to park up into our neighborhood, which is inappropriate or unnecessary at least. And we also in that resolution asked that the brick sidewalk along Van Ness Street be repaired, and to date that has not occurred. Moving on to traffic enforcement, I wanted to mention that I had reached out to the second police district. They've been responsive to request to enforce traffic laws along Van Ness Street, especially in light of the merch relocation. So they have a heightened presence at Van Ness and Reno, along with the intersections of Van Ness and 37th and 38th Street. So that's good news. Sorry for going on. I think I'm going to skip that missing person thing. I don't think we need to do that here. With regard to the Hearst Recreation Center and the park update, thus far DGS and DPR have conducted 3 meetings with the community regarding the potential design and inclusion of amenities at the park as part of the budgeted renovation of the park during the next 3 fiscal years. Information about the Recreation Center project can be found on the DGS website under the construction icon and Park and Recreation Centers. The most recent meeting occurred on September 8th, where 3 separate proposals were presented with an initial opportunity to comment or ask questions at that meeting. There continues to be widespread interest, obviously, including underlying issues about stormwater and geology of the area, which we've addressed in a resolution tonight, along with general concerns about parking and the placement of a pool. There continue to be a variety of opinions about the placement of the pool at the park and if it is placed there, where it should be located. DGS and DPR have indicated they will be issuing a public survey. Myself and the commissioner of the single-member district south of the park, Margaret Siegel, have requested a meeting with DGS and DPR before they issue the survey to ensure that proper considerations are given to it. That's all I have.
Okay.
David, can I ask you please to send me an email with all of this? There's no way that I got all
You
this.
didn't get, I can, if you like, I can
Speed.
repeat it. I will gladly give you a copy in an email. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you. So now we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Commissioner Allison.
And we're doing the budget, right?
And the budget.
Okay, so you all have the proposed budget, which was previously circulated here in this large pile of stuff. I'm circulating amongst you now because I didn't send this to Rachel to print, just our update treasurer's report. Since our last meeting in July, we have spent $4,026.37. We have received $96.74 for a current bank balance of $106,923. All the specific expenses are listed here. In addition, we are going to be approving our budget for 2017. It closely mirrors our last budget, so no major changes. This has been circulated in advance. You all have a copy, so unless there are any concerns, I suppose I would just move to approve it.
Second.
Any concerns?
Okay, so we have 15,000 left for grants.
All right, that's the idea. We would use 15,000 in grants
Right.
next year.
Well,
No,
no,
10,000.
actually, we have 10,000 here, but that's with the understanding that we obviously have a large bank balance, and should the ANC decide to do so, we are free to take action to spend additional funds as needed, apart from the budget.
Okay. All right.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns from the commissioners? Okay. All in favor of the budget as proposed and seconded? All opposed? Passes 700. Great.
Thank you.
And then the quarterly report? You do that?
Oh, yes, of course. We just need to approve it. So the final treasurer item is the approval of the quarter 3 financial report, which has also been circulated to all the commissioners in advance. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And if there are none, I would just move to approve it.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
Second?
You can't second it.
Yeah, you can't.
Any,
Wait a minute,
any
this is a-
discussion?
We're talking about the quarterly report?
quarterly report.
Okay. Yes,
You do have a question?
no, I'm good.
Any questions, comments? Okay. All in favor of quarterly report?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 7-0-0. Great. Okay. So we'll move on to committee reports. Start with Parks and Trails. Do you have anything?
So last Monday, September 12th at 7 p.m. right here in Forest Hills, D.C., the Soapstone, Melton, and Hazen Parks and Trails Committee met, continued to do good work with our subcommittee updates. We received one update about a new River Smart audit at the Van Ness North Building. They're awaiting the results of their recommendations that they're going to be receiving back. We also had,
Sorry, where was it?
it was at the Van Ness North Building in Shirley.
Great.
Barbara Bates was that. And we also had two work products, and I just want to thank all the members of the Parks and Trails Committee for working on both the resolution we passed dealing with the Hearst Park project and also with the Rock Creek Park Historic District resolution. So thank you.
Okay. Move on to the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. We'll give an update on that. The Streets and Sidewalk Committee held its inaugural meeting on August 30th. We had about 10 people there. We discussed the goals of the committee and came up with a taxonomy of the types of street and sidewalk issues that we want to try to identify in the neighborhood, so we can then create a database of issues throughout the ANC, take those to the relevant city agencies, and then have a way of following up on them. So our next meeting will be in October, probably October 5th. I'll send out the specific date and time, hopefully in the next week. But the one piece of business we need to do tonight is I'd like to make a motion to officially appoint the members of the committee. So I have here a motion to appoint the following commissioners and residents of ANC 3F as members of the ANC 3F Streets and Sidewalks Committee. And I'll just read them out quickly. David Dickinson, Sally Gresham, Patrick Hopchick, Malachi Nugent, Mary Beth Ray, those are the 5 commissioners, Robert Dayling, Jim Esselman, David Fathi, George Hoffman, Marcus Koblitz, Ed New, Jane Panagis, Scott Robbins, John Rollins, David Silverman, and Paul Walters.
Andrea, did you want to be on the committee?
What's that?
You were asking if Andrea wanted to be on the
I
committee?
thought she was on the original. Yes, no?
I thought so, but
No.
Okay.
That's
we
okay.
can- We can add your
No,
name.
we can add your name. All right, go ahead.
And is George Huffman on there?
All for
Yeah.
that as a
Okay.
friendly amendment.
Okay.
A friendly amendment to add.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay.
I just want to be sure our meetings don't, because we have two different meetings. We have the Parks and Trail, we have
Right.
the streets, and we just need to be aware that we have a lot of Van Ness Main Street meetings too.
Yep.
So,
Well, and 6 out of the 7 commissioners are
yeah,
on
well,
this
somebody can get
subcommittee
there.
now. So.
We can pinch it for each other.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Passes 7-0-0. Great. So we will move on to the Grants Committee. So I'll also give a quick update from the Grants Committee. We received over the course of the last month, we received one grant application from the Forest Hills Neighborhood Alliance and Rock Creek, it's cut off, Rock Creek something. Conservancy, probably.
Yeah.
For $3,000. So I'll make a motion to refer this to the Grants Committee. The Grants Committee will then review it, ask any questions, and then we will bring it up for consideration at our next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Passes. Great. We're flying tonight.
Commissioner Nugent, is there a grant proposal in front of us for merch?
Yes.
Yes, that's
Okay.
next.
Okay.
Next.
Thank you.
So, there is a grant proposal in front of us for merch. It was a grant for $3,000 for the Ben W. Merch Home and School Association for the one-time purchase of audio amplification equipment to be used at Merch Elementary School. The grant committee looked at this. It seems to be in order, and we recommend that the commission approve it. Now, unfortunately, nobody is here from the HSA tonight, but if we have questions, we can table this for now, and they can answer our questions, but I don't have any.
Is this for the new building, or is this, they're gonna use this at the swing space?
It's portable equipment that they will use at the swing space, but then when they move over, they
They're
can
gonna
take it over and
Okay. I just-
still use it. So is there a second to the motion to approve this grant? Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes 700.
What was the name of the first grant you said? It was Rock Creek Conservancy and
Forest Hills Alliance.
Alliance. Okay. And do we know what the grant is for?
We do, we have an application,
Okay, so you're gonna,
but we'll review it. I actually think it may not be.
I mean, will the rest of us get this?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you'll.
It's been sent to all of us,
I
but,
just don't remember seeing it, okay.
okay. So that concludes the committee reports. We'll now move to the community open forum. So at this point, we'll invite anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on a neighborhood issue to come up to the microphone. Wait, are we on?
Melanie, is it the part of the grants committee to propose a change in
That's
the
I'm gonna do that at the end,
Okay.
in other business.
Okay.
Now. So please feel free to come up and speak about anything related to the community, to the neighborhood, that we're not going to be discussing specifically on the agenda.
Chairman Nugent and Commissioners, I'm David Vardine. I just want to bring to the committee's attention a couple of dates and documents involving statehood over the next 2 months. The Board of Elections met last week and set on the ballot for November, and that includes the advisory referendum on statehood. We should be getting the actual sample ballots any day now, but you don't have to wait to see the language of that advisory referendum, which will be on the ballot, is on this one-page fact sheet, which I prepared. There's a stack of them outside if anybody didn't get it and wants to, we can just pass them out. Number two, the council has before it a bill which includes a draft constitution. I have a stack of the current draft constitution also out on the table. If anybody didn't get it, I can give it to you. The hearing is on the morning of September 27th, next Tuesday, and then on the evening of October 6th. Any member of the community who is interested, either in testifying or in submitting written statements, is invited to do so. The most efficient way is a phone number on the website for the council, but the most efficient way is by email and address COW, C-O-W, which stands for Committee of the Whole, cow@dccouncil.us. That way you can file your written statements or you can ask to testify. I'm going to testify on Tuesday. I'm now listed as the second witness, And my plan is to pre-file my testimony on Friday, as is my usual practice, and when I do that, I will share it with all the commissioners. If you have no questions, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Judith Maria. I'm from the Office of Disability Rights. And
Excuse me, can I ask you to spell your name?
Judith, Judith, M as in Mary, B as in boy, UYA. Our mission is to ensure that every service, activity, program, or benefit that is offered or funded by the district is fully accessible to people with disabilities. And I'm doing outreach for Vision Zero, which is an initiative led by DDOT to reduce all serious injuries and transportation-related deaths to zero by 2024. And so to give you an idea, for example, by mid-August, there were 13 fatalities. 6 were by vehicle, 3 by pedestrians, 3 motorcycles, and 1 by bike. And so we have a 4-action step plan, collecting data, going around all the intersections in the city, and seeing, looking at the curbs, sidewalks, crosswalks, what's working, what's not, that kind of thing. And then engineering is fixing the problems, and enforcement, increasing law enforcement, and education, which is what I'm doing, the outreach. And so the other part is what I'm doing is trying to get feedback from residents to see what areas in your communities that need fixing. For example, you can think of problematic intersections that, with curves or pathway, sidewalks that need to be fixed, or dangerous intersections where people are speeding and not following the rules of the road. I'll be in the back for a few minutes, or you can stay in right now and I'll write them down and include it in my report.
Could you give us your email address?
Yes.
And your phone number. Email and phone
We
number,
will
please.
definitely be in touch.
Judith MBUYA, number 3 at dc.gov.
Just the number 3?
Yes. And my number is 202-724-7525.
7,
525.
5. Is that your desk?
Yes. Booyah. Sorry, again? Judith.Booyah, MBUYA, number 3 at dc.gov. So I heard some of the stuff you mentioned, and for example, like the Sides and Street Walk committee. That's the kind of thing. Like if you have any, if you can think of specific intersections, I'll jot them down. And I'm actually writing a report for next week.
Great.
That's it. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Judith.
We will be sending you intersections.
Okay, great.
Empty your inbox.
And
Get ready.
and crumbling sidewalks that were only put in 3 years ago.
Good evening, everybody. It's Teresa Cameron with Van Ness Main Street. And the first thing I wanted to give a shout out to DDOT for installing a sidewalk by Potbellies. We have a lot of new patrons that will be coming to use the University of the District of Columbia's Performing Arts Center because of some new concerts that are happening there. And we were so happy that DDOT was able to just come in charge and put a sidewalk in quickly. And so thank you so much for that. And I think we don't thank them enough, so thank you. I wanted to talk about some things that Van Ness Main Street's doing right now. And the first thing is Art All Night. And hopefully you've all gotten a postcard about this. Art All Night is the first really big event we've been doing, that we will be doing in Van Ness. We have performances and exhibitions throughout Van Ness. The best thing to do is to come at 7 o'clock and start at the University of the District of Columbia Student Center. We'll have a visual arts exhibition with 12 local artists, and then we'll have a really fantastic performance on the Metro Plaza. We'll have performances in front of the UDC Law School. Acacia Bistro will be doing jazz. Bread First will have local authors. Park Van Ness has offered their plaza for us to do some performing arts. WMU is doing an open house, and they're giving away free books. It's important, free books. And Calvert Woodley has graciously given us their parking lot starting at 9 to do a DJ dance. So we're really excited. It's going to be a really great event. And several of our other local businesses are just doing fun things, like the Italian Pizza Kitchen is showing films, Italian films all night. So the goal of this is to celebrate local arts, but also get people back into our local businesses. So I hope you'll join us. It's a big event for Van Ness, so we want to see all of our neighbors come out for it and support it, and support our local businesses.
They're all free, and they're all
free. Everything
family.
is free, except for you
friendly.
have to go to local businesses and purchase things.
Right.
That's what we're all about.
Food,
I hope
etc.
some of you, oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention is all of the police have been informed, AU police, DC police, the Secret Service, and UDC police. So we don't know how many to expect, but this is a citywide event. So we're hoping we get a lot of interlopers into Van Ness to see how cool Van Ness can be. The other piece that we're doing is we have our farmers market that's been going on, and we've had a lot of performances that we've funded throughout the summer. It's been very successful, the farmers market. We're partnering with UDC in front of Building 52. We'll be having a holiday event in November, and we hope everyone can come out for that. We'll get you the date as soon as we get it set. We're going to feature a lot of arts and crafts for that event. And Jazz at the End, we do every month at a different restaurant. So if you don't get the emails, just see me, and I'll make sure you're on the list. As Commissioner Gresham mentioned, we were lucky enough to do some design grants to our local businesses. Really important to support them, and the work that they needed done was something that they couldn't do without our help. So I'm very excited that we were able to give them money, and that they were all able to match. So frequent those businesses and tell them, oh, this looks great. And then the other piece is that, if you've noticed, Albemarle and Van Ness, Albemarle, Connecticut rather, we're doing a huge amount of work on the buildings there. And that is really exciting, because those particular buildings they're not historic, but they are very interesting, and they're part of kind of the Deco era. And so we've taken them back. We've worked with Borger Management. Thank you very much, Borger Management. We've taken down the awnings. We're rehabbing the fronts. We're painting. We're bringing them back. And that's phase one. Phase two will be new signage for them. And it's our first kind of big design project in Van Ness. So look for some more things like that happening in Van Ness, because we're not just going to focus on that, but some other areas. And in economic development, we have held our second business-to-business breakfast, and we featured great streets from the District of Columbia. There are grants available for our businesses, and so we had over 20 businesses come to this meeting to talk about grant opportunities that they can apply for, to use for all kinds of different things to improve their businesses. And it was a really, really good meeting. And we continue to provide a lot of technical assistance to our businesses, including we hired a restaurant consultant that's been working with our restaurants and giving really fantastic advice. They've been very happy with that, so we'll continue with that. And we also have a new owner of one of our businesses, our dry cleaners. I can't say who yet, but we're really excited about that. And I also wanted to mention that, again, our office is next to Acacia Bistro. It is supplied by the University of the District of Columbia. Thank you, Michelle. And we have a great new sign in the window. I'm there all the time. So if you ever need any help, or you're just a neighbor and you want to stop by and say hi, please stop by. That's what we're here for. We're on the street. We're here to help you. And so anything I can do to help, just let me know. Thanks.
Do you have anything? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, but
Okay, thank you. I am Mary Pekakonis, P as in Peter, E-C-K-I-C-O-N-I-S, as in Sam.
Can you say it again, please?
Yes, Pekakonis, Mary Pekakonis, P-E-C-K-I-C-O-N-I-S. Mary Beth, there is a stop work order on the wall by CBS in 4301 Connecticut. Do you know when that hearing's going to be over and what's happening with it? They were attempting to put up a digital sign. It's been up for 2 weeks. The stop work order went up about 10 days ago.
Wait, 4301.
The CBS
yes.
That's
That's
Shirley.
Shirley.
Shirley? No?
No.
Okay, so nobody knows. So the workers came at night, they started every night at 11, and then one night at 9, before they could take their stuff out. The DC government came and put the sign up. There was recently an article in the Northwest Current about the DigiSign company, and I was wondering if that was one of their signs, and what's happening with that.
I had not heard about that.
Okay.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
bringing that to my
Okay.
attention. Perhaps I could get your email address. I'll look into it and get
Okay.
back to you about it.
Sure. Mary Peck, MaryPeck,
Okay.
at starpower.net.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I'll follow up with you.
Thanks.
This is about the digital signs. Yes, there was an article about it.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name's Ian Maggard. I'm the Ward 3 liaison for the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. My former colleague, Mike Matthews, used to cover these meetings, and I'll be covering these meetings now. If you have any community issues, concerns, feel free to contact me. My cards are in the back, and also the mayor's newsletter is in the back as well. Thank you.
Now, you can't get off on this. You cannot sit down unless you tell us about the Albemarle 32nd intersection, which you told me today, about, says we have a closed sidewalk with two.
Yeah, so I followed
bollards.
DDOT today.
Right.
They're actually going to move the sign, or move a sign and block off the sidewalk at Connecticut and Albemarle, so folks don't walk mid-block and have to cross. And then also followed up with DPW to get the grass cut. They should be out there tomorrow. If not tomorrow, please contact me.
I will.
Yeah.
So when you say they put, it means you cannot walk, if they put it right up at Connecticut, you cannot walk down Connecticut? I mean, down Albemarle?
Down Albemarle on that side.
You have to cross at the corner.
Yeah. So then, because right now folks are getting about midway down, and then they're making that cross
At 32nd.
mid-block.
Right, but usually they put a sign up that says sidewalk closed ahead.
Yes.
It's not where you physically can't walk down the sidewalk next to Diplomat Cleaners so you can get to that parking lot.
Yeah, that's what they're going to install. So then
Okay.
it
Okay.
encourages folks to use that crosswalk. At
Okay,
Connecticut and
just as
Albemarle.
long as it's not,
That's signalized rather than
Right.
cross kind of mid-block.
okay, thank you.
Anything else?
First, I'd like to thank you guys for stopping the Chick-fil-A. Hi, my name is Adrian Salzgiver. I live in Nima Gardens behind the Days Inn.
Can I ask you to spell your last name?
Salzgiver, S-A-L-S-G-I-V-E-R. First name is Adrian, A-D-R-I-A-N, salzgiver.com. Well, I got off the subway, Tenleytown. This has happened twice. And the smell of that Chick-fil-A hit me and just about knocked me over. So I want to thank you guys very much again. Because that would be coming in my back window. And it was really, really bad. And the other thing that I would like to say, I have an announcement to make that radical Islamic terrorism has come to our neighborhood. There are burqas coming in and out of the Park Van Ness building. Now, first the burqas, then the bombs. I'm telling you, we got a problem here. I don't know what you guys can do about it. We have to maybe educate them that they don't need to be running around in the hood. Because it's sort of like the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, can you imagine a Klan running around in hoods in our neighborhood? Would something be done about it? Now we've got radical Islamic terrorists. Maybe not these ladies in the burqas. If they're ladies, we don't know because we can't see them. But the whole element and the whole idea of this is very, very upsetting and very dangerous. So I'm just telling you. I told you guys about the Epicurean. I said you got to replace that owner, you got to replace that manager, you got to replace that bartender. Now look at it, it's closed. Well, I hope that I'm not going to be coming in front of you guys in the coming months after there are some bombings in this neighborhood and tell you I warned you. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay. No other comments for the open forum. We'll move on to our presentation on UDC housing. Michelle, come join us. Do you want to introduce something?
I would just like to welcome Michelle Pouchot, who is UDC's new Director of External Affairs. I also see Juanita Gray, who runs the housing program. I'm very grateful that they're here. Commissioner Dickinson and I have been working closely with UDC, not only on their housing program, which houses students in MySMD, but on the many initiatives that are underway. And I want to commend President Mason's whole administration for taking very seriously the importance of community involvement. We're really glad to have you here, and I think you'll be updating us on the housing program and possibly some other initiatives as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me tonight. President Mason was going to be here, but when we saw where we were on the agenda, we thought it was going to be very late, so I must commend you on it.
So now you can go back and tell him. Yeah. You can come next time.
He will. He will be here. Well, school started back about a month ago, and we're happy to say that enrollment has been steady, and that we've got some new students from a new program that we have called DC Up. DC Up is a scholarship program that's offered to mainly DC residents, and we've got 12 salutatorian and valedictorian from DC public and charter schools, and so we're really excited. In the overall program, we've got 48 students enrolled, and these are students who are exemplary in our community, so we're really excited about that. In terms of housing, our units are down only 10%. We thought we'd have less units this year, but because of the demand for housing, as you know, housing is very expensive in this city. And then the impact it would have if we eliminated housing. We included continuing to have housing, and we have currently 36 total units. In those units, we have 133 students, and there are 6 units that are staff units, and they're in 2 buildings on Van Ness. I wish I could say that we started the year without incident, but unfortunately, we had a couple students in the housing that were shooting BB guns, and luckily no one got hurt. Those students have been pellet guns. Those students have been suspended. We still continue on our mission of having our own housing on campus. We partner with a developer who is seeking to buy the parcel at 4250 Connecticut Avenue, which is where the Starbucks is, and we want to put housing there. And we're still waiting for a final decision, but we're very optimistic. If once that happens, though, it's our understanding that Fannie Mae will continue to occupy that building for 2 years. So this is maybe slightly different from what some of you have heard. And then we'll have to build it out, so there'll be a couple years after that before we can take occupancy. So we're really hoping that happens. President Mason wanted me to say, and of course, this would be what I always would say, we want to be your good neighbor, and we want to be your anchor. And so we're really excited about Van Ness Main Street, partnering with them and bringing all the wonderful activities to the university. We have some specific groups that we're working with, many of you here and others on. So we have a housing working group. We also have a community task force. We'll have a meeting coming up next month. It'll be publicized, and we welcome you to come to have a dialogue. And we're really trying to change the agenda for that meeting around collaboration and talking about how we can better invite you in the community and help you take advantage of the wonderful resource that's right here in your ANC. I already said Van Ness Main Street's partnership. We're working with the Washington Project for the Arts, and hopefully you already know they're using our theater while the Kennedy Center is being reconstructed. And their first performance starts next Friday, Step Africa, And they're here through the fall, spring season, and we're really working with them to try to make some improvements so that it's easier to get from the parking structure into the facility. And then with all the activity that's going on with Main Streets, we know that it'll be a wonderful time on campus. You already know about merch being on our campus, and that has really proceeded pretty effortlessly. So we're really glad to house them and to open them up to the campus. We want you to come over and rent space. We have the new wonderful student center, but we also have other wonderful places on campus that you might want to have an activity. And we have the big read coming up. So check our website twice within the school year. We have famous authors come over and talk about their books, and I can't remember that we've confirmed one, and I can't remember who it is. So I'm sorry I don't have it with me, but I'll make sure the commissioners have it so they can share it with you all. And we're also having a watch party for the presidential debate next week at the law school in the moot court room. So that's the 26th. I think it's at 8 or 9 o'clock. It should be a very lively activity. So please come.
If Acacia is co-hosting, maybe we'll.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't be YOB, so
Okay.
I don't
All right.
know.
All right.
He's got to go build a wall.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So if you would just hang on for 1 minute, are there any questions from commissioners?
Do you have
I have none.
anything? Thank you so much, Michelle. We're so happy to just be working on so many things together. It's a great partnership. I had the real pleasure of seeing Spike Mendelson from Top Chef cook at UDC, and I asked him, as I was eating some of the delicious pizza he had made with vegetables grown on the roof garden of UDC, if he would consider opening a restaurant in Van Ness. And he said he would love to be in Van Ness, and in fact, he'd love to be on the UDC campus. So I just wondered, how can we forward that conversation? Because I think you all have retail space in the student center.
I don't think we have any space that isn't committed. We've been in the process of reviewing proposals for a contractor who will operate the retail space in the center.
You mean the food
But I
court?
know- The food court, yes. And that'll be going before the city council soon. So it's pretty progressed beyond that level. But our causes program does a lot of work with them, and I'll talk to our dean and see if she has any ideas. And Eric Thompson serves on the Main Street board,
Right.
and he's our facilities person. So I think this conversation should continue.
Great. And then my second question is, I've seen the gym. It's fantastic. I want to join. And I understand that you're going to open it to the public. When is that going to happen?
So the opening of the gym has been delayed, and actually I don't know at this moment when it's to open. October 3rd.
Oh.
And so rates have been established. I'll get you those rates.
Great.
And, we'll be testing it out. We've got wonderful equipment. There'll be classes, including yoga. And so I'm looking forward to it opening. And hopefully I'll be using it.
I have a question. Do you have any plan for making your swimming facilities more open to the nearby public for things such as aerobic swimming?
I'll get it back.
At this time, I really can't answer that question, but I'll take it down and see what the athletics folks say.
The athletics and the natatorium, if you'll do a search on UDC natatorium hours, they've just released last week the natatorium hours and the prices and all the accessible times.
You have to go there to get the pass.
Yes, you do have to go to UDC to get the passes, but it's all available. It just popped up either last week or 2 weeks.
That's great. I looked about 6 months ago and didn't find anything.
They only do them by semester.
Before we move on to audience questions, I'm just going to move through the commissioners first, and then I'll throw it right back out to you guys. Commissioner Gresham, did you have anything? Any questions?
Not right now. Maybe when she comes back.
Okay.
I think David did.
I have none, thank you.
I don't have questions. I just have one thing I wanted to mention for the commissioners, that one of the things we've worked with Michelle on and President Mason and others is coming to some agreed upon reporting deadlines. So as many of you know, the UDC housing program in the residential buildings is predicated on a zoning order from 2011, which includes quite a few reporting requirements to the ANC, and I'm very grateful to UDC for getting that on track. So all of you do have a copy of those reporting deadlines, and if you have any questions about that, we can certainly answer them now or later.
Is this the task force, or this is a separate?
So the task force is part of this. One of the elements of the zoning order that permits the housing program in residential units is that UDC is to hold quarterly community campus task force meetings.
Right.
So one of the sets of dates listed here is essentially deadlines for each of those meetings. And our next one, as Michelle mentioned, will be in October, and they'll be advertising that. And I think there is discussion right now about adding a representative from Van Ness Main Street to that group as well. So that's also a development.
Okay. Could I request that you include all the commissioners on the quarterly task force? We used to get notification. Somehow we got dropped off.
Yes, and Shirley's told me
Yeah.
how to do that, so.
Okay.
Just today, we provided all the
Hey.
email addresses, so we should all
Okay.
be on the same page.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
In writing on that, I'll let you know that I was assigned or volunteered to sort of draft a mission statement and sort of task to be addressed by this task force.
Okay.
And once I achieve that, I will circulate that with the commissioners and with members of the task force as well. That's a living document at this point, or
Okay.
involved.
Great.
And then, just one second. Any other commissioner comments? David?
Could UDC or Washington Performing Arts, or both, do something more to advertise this new development in our neighborhood? I see in a store window a huge poster for Kennedy Center's Marriage of Figaro. But I don't see posters to go to UDC's Performing Arts Center. And I think we should see that. And you got the printing capacity, and you got the relationship with them, and you just got to break through the bureaucracy. You inside UDC and inside Washington Performing Arts, design a poster, get Van Ness mainstreams involved in putting them out. We should have posters in every storefront that's willing to do it, but we don't yet. This is a very important development, and we want a very good attendance. Most of my neighbors don't know that this is about to happen.
Teresa, down there tomorrow.
There was, in the Sunday Washington Post, when was it? I think a week ago Sunday. You know how they, in the arts section, they have the listing, all the UDC performances were in that.
That's great. And the
But I agree
Foresters
with you, we
Connection
need.
had something, and that's
Right.
great. But we go to various stores all the time, and it has to hit us again and again
Right.
and again. It'd be nice to have handouts and a snack, but at least posters. Nice catchy
second.
posters.
Brenda, you go ahead.
Do
And then,
you have the date for the next community task force yet?
No.
Sometime in October, but
It's-
it's floating.
Yeah, we settled on a regular date, but the October date was tricky because of a holiday. So I think we came short of saying if it's a holiday, what day it would be to, it would
You
move
don't have a
to.
date
So I
yet.
would,
You know it's gonna be in October.
mid-October.
Hi, I'm not sure this is in your area, but the Wilson Pool is gonna be closed for about a month next year. And so people could turn to the UDC pool. However, I went there today looking for it, there are no signs, and people had to direct me. So can we get some signs up there? And I think it would be an opportunity as well to let people know that the UDC pool is available, because a lot of people swim, and particularly in the winter, and if Wilson's gonna be closed for a month, that'd be an excellent opportunity to use your pool. And maybe you can even work out something a lot of seniors use it, they're used to not paying anything, and maybe there could be a small charge or some kind of promotion that would also get people engaged.
So for signage, so I've been with UDC for a little over 4 months. more about signage than I should. But it's very difficult getting around our campus.
Yes.
And so
Very difficult.
that is on my list. It's not in the top 10, unfortunately. And it kind of makes me cringe every time there's an event. We put various signs around. But
But
Eric,
I'm talking about just inside. I mean, I'm wandering around the gym. I have no idea where this place is. And it doesn't seem that involved. It just puts some signs up to let people know.
Or
Because
maps,
if you-
just a
you
map.
put seniors in there, and they're trying to find the pool, and they have trouble, that's.
so I agree. It's on my list. I don't know that just the signs for the pool are specifically on my list, but the issues with finding your way around campus and inside of buildings is something we've got to address.
Any other questions for Ms. Bouchot?
I just wanted to let David know that we are working with all of the people who are using the center, including local arts and young artists of Washington and Washington Performing Arts. And we're trying to help them figure out ways they can advertise in the neighborhood, and we've invited them to our farmers market to advertise as well as art all night. And we've encouraged them to do just what we're talking about. So, and we're working with UDC very closely on this. And we're trying to also help related to wayfinding so that people are coming to the concert knowing where they're going. If they're not driving and they're coming from Metro, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to find the performance, and so we're trying to work with them on that. And the great thing is our restaurants, many of them are giving concert goers a 10% off discount either pre-concert or post-concert.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I think this was a really good discussion. I hope we have more of these.
Could you give us your email?
My email
Yes.
is
Or
Michelle, MICHELLE dot Pushow, PSAL, OURCIAU at UDC.edu.
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to a presentation on Bill B21-0038, the Death with Dignity Act. I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Dickinson to introduce the topic, and then we have some other speakers.
Great. First, I'd like to thank ANC Chair Nugent and the rest of the commissioners for their support in placing this critical item on the agenda this evening. I'd also like to thank our neighbor, Mr. Chuck Ludlam, for his assistance in this matter and his dedication in bringing forth the facts and intent behind the Death with Dignity Act. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. Daniel Diaz, or Dan, as he has given me permission to call him. I will introduce him in a moment, but before, I'd like to give he will give a fuller context of the history and operation of this act as adopted and implemented in several other states. I've placed a fact sheet generated by Councilmember Che's office at the table outside. It summarizes some of the bill and the process for patients. I also encourage those interested in researching the papers issued by the group Compassion and Choices, and I'll mention that both Ms. Donna Smith and Mr. Jared Hughes from the Compassion and Choices group are here tonight, and welcome to them. The intent tonight is to introduce this bill and topic, and is deemed appropriate by the commissioners, potentially take it up at next month's meeting in order to consider a resolution in support of the bill. The Death with Dignity Act was introduced by Councilmember Che last year. It is scheduled now for committee markup by the Health and Human Services Committee on October 5th. It is anticipated that once it clears that committee, the bill then would be taken up by the full council. I'm not sure if that will happen before or after the November election. And also, given that it bookends the election, you might consider, if you're interested in this act, in asking the candidates their position on the issue. If you don't mind, I'm just going to summarize the Death with Dignity bill in that it establishes a process for a patient with a terminal illness with less than 6